Got to get back to that shooting, the horrific shooting in Florida. The suspect appeared in court, admitted to killing 17 people. John Lott is with us, Crime Prevention Research Center. He joins us now. John, you say, I think I'm quoting you correctly now, background checks are not the answer to solving gun violence. Well, how about tougher background checks that would include any history of mental illness? Wouldn't that help?
Hi, yeah, it's good to talk to you. Look, one of the things you find when you go back through these types of cases is that many of these people were actually seeing mental health care professionals before they engaged in these attacks. And what you find consistently is that they never are able to identify these individuals as a danger to themselves or others. It'd be great if mental health care professionals had some magic ability to go and discern whether or not somebody's likely to go and do something bad. But you have to keep in mind a couple other things. One is people with mental health tend to be more likely victims of violent crime, and they also tend to be less violent on average. So just going and having a blanket rule that says that anybody who has any type of mental health issue should be banned from having the option to protect themselves could create real problems.
Sure. Look, I do see your point, John. It's a very valid point to make. But if background checks don't work, you're with the Crime Prevention Research Center. What will work to cut down on these horrific school shootings?
Right. But just so people know, with these background checks, there's not one of the mass public shootings in the last few decades, at least, that would have been stopped by any of the changes that people have been talking about with regard to background checks.
Okay.
We all want to keep bad guys from getting guns, but what would work is looking at what determines where these guys attack. And time after time, when we can get their diaries or look at other statements that they've made, they go after places where they know victims can't defend themselves, these so-called gun-free zones. Since 1950, over 98% of the mass public shootings have taken place in those areas where general citizens aren't allowed to have guns for protection.
Are you in the camp that says we should arm teachers?
Yeah, I think that's something we really need to think about. Staff and teachers, there's 25 states that to varying degrees allow teachers or staff to be able to go and have guns. And, you know, one can go and think about things that might go wrong, but it's turned out to work very well in the places that have allowed it.
But you realize how people feel about that. I mean, people just recoil at that. The idea of sending your 6, 7, 8-year-old youngster into a classroom with a teacher armed with a gun, you know, that's a little off-putting for a lot of people, isn't it?
Look, I've been an academic, teaching at universities most of my life. I understand. But what I would say is that there are about 17 million Americans that have concealed carry permits. If you live in a state other than California, New York, and let's say D.C., about 8% of the adult population has concealed carry permits. So when you go to a restaurant or go to a movie theater or go to, you know, any place outside a mall, it's extremely likely that there are other people there with you within feet who have a concealed handgun with them, but you would never know. And the same thing would be true with staff or teachers having guns.
Would you agree that, look, it's a real crying shame that we've come to this? You agree with that?
Oh, sure. I'd like to live in a world where there's no violence.
Yep.
But the problem is, you know, at the very least, I want big signs. I want signs in front of schools or other places that people can attack that says, look, there are people here that can defend themselves and will if you try to go and do something. I think, you know, you read these statements by these killers, and they may be mentally off in many important ways, but they're not stupid. And their goal is to try to kill as many people as possible. And the amount of time that elapses between when an attack starts and somebody's able to arrive on the scene with a gun is going to determine how much carnage that you're going to have. And look, police are important, but having somebody in uniform is an almost impossible job. It's kind of like somebody wearing a neon sign saying, shoot me first. And what you find is that law enforcement in those areas, time after time, are the first people who are shot at.
John, thank you very much for articulating your point of view on this program. We do appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
Part of the debate.